at that time they were saying, no, we're not fashion, we're in the athletic sports business. And I remember having these arguments saying to Reebok, well, if you're only in the athletic sports business, why have you got a banana yellow high top?
Sir Tom Hunter, thanks for hanging out, thanks for chatting today. And my idols are not soccer players or movie stars or musicians, they're business people, and you're very high up on that list. So yeah, it's really good
very
to
high.
chat.
That doesn't sound very good, James. You know?
Like at least top 5.
Could be top 100. You're in, Tom. Great. Okay.
We'll go top 5.
Thanks, James.
We'll go top 5. So yeah, just wanted to have a chat about your story, what you've done in business, what you've done in philanthropy. But we'll maybe start with you describe yourself as unemployable when you finished university.
Yeah, well, I guess it's a trait that I see in lots of entrepreneurs. You don't know it when you're young, and but I always wanted to be my own boss. I like the control. But I thought I would need to get some experience. You know, I'd worked in my dad's shop, little grocer's shop in a mining village in Scotland. But I thought I better go and get some experience. But guess what? Every interview I went to, I got turned down. So I just felt quite bad at the time. You know, I thought, goodness, nobody wants me. So, but they must have saw whatever in me that I was just gonna take from them what I could glean and then go and do my own thing. And they were quite right.
So unemployable, didn't manage to get a job. What did you decide to do next?
Yeah, so as I said, my dad's shop was a little grocer's shop, and that's where I learned to buy and sell. And my dad was and is my hero. And but it was a mining village, deep coal mines. And when the coal mines, they went on strike and then they never reopened. So our village was maybe 5,000 people, and 90% of the male employment was down the pit. So therefore, when they didn't reopen, my dad had to close the shop, you know, sold it to the local guy who had another shop, and he closed my dad's shop because there was only room for one shop left. But luckily my dad put a little bit of money in with another businessman who wanted to sell shoes. And I got the idea, and I used to look at the sales returns from the market stalls, and trainers were a big part of it. And I thought, goodness, right, how could I sell trainers? Couldn't afford a shop. So I made up a letterhead, wrote, luckily my girlfriend at the time could type. We made up a letterhead and we wrote to 2 existing retailers saying that we were a fast expanding footwear company. And did they have any space in their stores for my shoes, of which I didn't have any. And one of them amazingly said, yeah, come and see us. And it was a jeans denim shop, and denim and trainers made sense to me. And so they said yes, which was remarkable. And I remember driving home and saying to my dad, well, the good news and the bad news. The good news is I've said yes, but the bad news is I don't know what to do. You know, I've got no money, I've got no shoes, and what are we going to do? So my dad loaned me 5,000, and I borrowed 5,000 from the bank, and I bought some shoes, and yeah, the rest's history.
And when was that, and how old were you?
Oh goodness, so that was 1984, and I was 23.
23 at the helm of a rapidly expanding shoe business that didn't exist.
Yes. Yep.
I mean, it takes a bit of confidence to send that letter. And
Well, I suppose I had nothing to lose. You know, I was staying with my mum and dad. I had no mortgage. I had no kids. I had, you know, and I had what's known in Scotland as a brass neck.
So if someone isn't from Scotland, how would you translate that?
I would call it chutzpah. So yeah, brass neck's good though.
Yeah. So started at 23 years old with £10,000. You had one customer, so I guess you had to source the shoes and then start building your business.
Well, the thing about trainers in those days was that it was Adidas, it was Nike, it was Puma, Reebok, but none of these guys wanted to supply me because I was selling them in a fashion environment, and at that time they were saying, no, we're not fashion, we're in the athletic sports business. And I remember having these arguments saying to Reebok, well, if you're only in the athletic sports business, why have you got a banana yellow high top? You're in the fashion business, guys. But they wouldn't have it. I remember it was cottage industry in those days, and it used to be the retired footballer got the sports shop in a town and he was protected. And here I was coming in disrupting it. So for a long time, they wouldn't supply me. So I had to buy my shoes wherever I could, you know.
And where were you buying the shoes?
So I was buying them from wholesalers in the north of England, or really anywhere that I could. And I was lucky at that time that we just caught a wave that trainers or sneakers were, you know, on the rise. So.
And when did you decide to make the move from selling shoes to other people's stores to having your own store?
Well, once I could afford it, which took 5 years, James.
5 years?
5 years, you know, the people say, oh, goodness, you know, overnight success, you know. So it took 5 years to afford my first shop, which was no bigger than this room, 300 square feet in Paisley in Scotland.
And when did that first shop open?
1989.
And the first one was called Sports Division?
It was called Shoe Division.
Shoe Division.
Because at that point we only did shoes, we only did trainers.
And then from that one shop, when did the second one?
Yes, so you know the progression was pretty rapid then, and suppliers were beginning to say, right, you've got your own shop, so they would supply me direct, which was a big thing, and then this phenomenon called the shell suit came along. And always when I'm speaking in front of an audience, I'll say, hands up those who've got a shell suit. And nobody puts their hands up. And I said, well, somebody must have bought them because I was selling 6 million of them a year.
In Scotland?
Europe,
okay.
And yeah, I remember being at a trade show where we're still only selling shoes, and somebody said, Tom, have you saw these shell suits? And I said, what's a shell suit? And they said, look, come in this place. Look, this is it. And I went, that's it? And they went, yeah. And from that, we began to sell shell suits. And as I say, we became the biggest seller in Europe of shell suits.
And to anyone who's maybe under the age of 20 and kind of missed this phenomenon, how would you describe a shell suit?
Well, they're coming back. So it's like a shiny fabric that's totally flammable.
Yeah.
and it's just, yeah, like a tracksuit except shiny.
So you went from one store. What did you get to organically before you did the big acquisition that we'll speak about in a moment?
So we got through, and then I went to America and I saw the advent of a superstore, which was these out of town. Obviously in America it was huge, but in Britain it wasn't. Out of town superstores, and they were selling all sorts. So we came back to the UK and opened the first kind of sports superstore out of town, selling all sorts of stuff, golf clubs, bikes, fitness. And so we'd got them, but that was by 1995. So.
And where was the first superstore that
first
you opened?
Superstore was in Teesside Retail Park in the northeast of England. And yeah, phenomenal. And but we were really hungry to grow, but we were about the 7th biggest in the UK. And but we were making about £4 million a year. And we were really, had a brilliant team of people, and we were hungry for more. And that's when Olympus came up, because they were the biggest in the UK, but they were losing about £14 million a year. And I thought, I'd love to take them on. And so we went down and met, they were part of a conglomerate called Sears. And basically they treated me with contempt and said, oh son, look, you go back to Scotland, you know, we're number one. That's actually when I contacted Philip Green of all people. And Philip at that time, you know, he had the chutzpah to go and get Sears, and he set it up, but he didn't have any money. So I had to go and borrow and put my house in the line. So we then became the owners of Olympus.
But this is a crazy thing. So you're the 7th biggest sports retailer in the UK with how many stores?
Oh, I mean, we had maybe 40 stores.
7th biggest with 40 stores. Olympus at that time were the biggest with how many stores?
280.
So you had the guts, the vision, the audacity, being the seventh biggest to take on the biggest.
Well,
Where does that come from?
again, it just didn't seem any big deal to us. We could see what they were doing wrong, and we just wanted to get in there and sort it out. It was like a no-brainer.
I mean, what's the psychology behind that being a no-brainer? Because like, I think if you put that option on the table, a normal person, a person that maybe doesn't think quite as disruptively or quite as innovatively, it just, everything about it looks far too risky, far too much of a gamble, far too crazy. But
So-
as you saw it, it was none of those things.
So we really knew our business. We knew all our numbers. So we knew our sales per square foot. We knew Olympus's sales per square foot. We knew our margins. We knew their margins. So the whole one-page business plan I gave to the bank to borrow the money was...
One-page business plan.
Yeah, was if I get Olympus's sales per square foot to, if I improve them to even 20% more, which is still 40% less than us, and if I move their margins 2 points, which is still going to be 4 points less than us, we've won. That's it. And I remember the bank saying, well, Tom, I need a bigger plan. I said, well, I've nothing else to say. That's it. And they said, well, I can't go to my credit committee with this. And I said, well, that's up to you. That's what I'm going to do. And that's how it works.
And the bank said yes.
Eventually, I had to put my house on the line. I didn't tell my wife that. And yeah.
Why did you not tell your wife that?
Well, I mean, it's our family home. The kids are in it. We could lose it.
And did you ever think that was a remote possibility? Or?
No, of course not. Goodness.
So you went from selling shoes out of a van to opening one single store, and then all of a sudden you've now got 300 stores to look after.
Yeah. And I remember the first night when we took over, and we went down to the Olympus's head office in Leicester, and myself and my right-hand man. Remember, I had a brilliant team of people who were great, and they could do more, and I wanted to do it as much for them as well as for myself. And we went down and we interviewed all the directors, and we thought, right, we're going to learn something here. And, you know, they've built a big business. It might not be making money, but... And we interviewed every one of them, and it got to about 10 o'clock at night, and we're sitting having a beer. And I said to Ian, what do you think? Because every one of them kind of said, oh, well, Tom, you know, this is a big business, and, you know, it's a bit more complicated than you're used to. And, maybe you've bitten off more than you can chew. And so he says, well, they seem very good at losing money, don't they? And I said, they do. So we got them all in the next morning, and in true Sir Alex Ferguson style, we said, we don't know what we're going to do without you, but we're going to give it a go. Cheerio.
And how many people was that?
It's, eight directors.
So the 8 most senior people in that business, and day 2 gone.
Yeah. And I should have done it on day 1. Because they would have pulled us down. My team were keen, they were motivated, they were full of enthusiasm, the culture was right. They were not. They were not. And we just decided we would be learn by doing. Just do it and see what happens.
And so you went into a big business, a business that was struggling. What did you and your people do to turn that business around?
Well, first of all, we spoke to the people. And once you get rid of the directors, underneath, we just said, what's wrong in the business? And they knew. And they said, right, you seem to know. Why did you not do it? Well, nobody was listening. I said, right, we're listening. Let's get a plan. And so it was their plan. So we just helped them do it. And they loved that culture. And, you know, we had a culture of, you know, listening, caring and acting. And people responded to it. And people enjoyed the job. We had always a bit of fun along the way.
And how would you say, when you was leading that big business, what was your management philosophy? How did you lead your team? How did you lead your people?
Yeah, so the culture that we built was really us against the world. So we were the underdog against the rest, but now we were the biggest in the UK. So it was a wee bit different, but it was still us going to turn around this big business. And, you know, so this culture of us against the world was important. This culture of caring and celebrating our success and I wanted people to say, if they're in the pub having a beer at night, I work for Sports Division, and be proud of it. And we did all sorts of crazy things. There was God of the Week, so myself and my team members, they all had to come on a Monday and put someone forward who did something over and above the course of business. And we, as a group of directors, went to their desk in front of their colleagues, and I would literally bend down and kiss their feet and thank them.
Did they have their shoes and socks on
Yes,
at that time? Okay.
yes. And I would thank them, and then they could take my car and my driver, and them and their partner could go for a meal. But it was really saying, one, we're not out of touch, two, we're listening, and three, we're grateful. Thank you for caring about this business.
And how long did you run that bigger business after the acquisition before you sold the
Yeah,
business?
so we ran it for 3 years. So we were making 4, they were losing 14, so negative 10. We turned it in 3 years into plus 35.8. So that's a 45.8 swing.
Love the fact you still know the decimal point in
yes,
that number.
oh, it's
all these years ago,
important.
yeah.
And then our biggest rival, who were a PLC, smaller than us, came and said, Tom, do you want to sell? And my first reaction was, no, I'll buy you. You know, we're very competitive. And but then I thought about it, and I thought, yeah, don't know why, but I thought, yeah, that'll do.
And how many years was it after you first sent this letter saying you were at the helm of this
So that
rapidly
was
expanding shoe business to
14
selling?
years.
14 years. So if you could go back to 23-year-old Tom when you set up the business and pass on one piece of advice based on what you've learned now, what piece of advice would you give?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very simple. It's learn by doing. I see so many people starting a business and a business plan. Oh, and the business plan's everything. And the last sale of the spreadsheet has got, oh, and this. And especially coming out of university. And then I'll say, you know, have you spoken to a customer? And oh no, we're just getting the business. I said, no, but pick up the phone to a customer. Find out if they're going to buy what you're selling. It's quite important. And if they're not, you've got to rethink it. And we see hundreds of business plans every year through West Coast Capital, and not one of them has ever done what it said it would do. Every profit and loss goes right to left, upward only, nice and steady. You know, sales lines are up, down, back. Whoa, whoa. This is a roller coaster. It's not a nice curve that just goes like this. So, of course, you need a plan that kind of lays it out, but you don't need a 50-page plan. Give me a one-pager, because it's probably not going to happen that way anyway. But I'm looking into your eyes to see, are you the sort of person who can deal with the challenges as they come your way and go, right, that didn't work, but we're over here now, and oh, right, you know. Because when we invest now, we're all about the founder. Regardless of sector, it's all about the founder.
And something you said to me that I think anyone who's running a business can relate to: the bigger you get, the dumber you get. So during the days of Sports Division, what did you do to combat that on your path to 7,500 people?
Yeah, so I got out and about. You know, in retail, the sad fact is the lowest paid person in our company was the person who took care of the customer. Now that scared me to death, you know, so I made sure I was in the stores every Friday and Saturday, speaking to the people who dealt with the customer and saying, what can we do to help you? You know, so listening and then acting, because there's nothing worse than asking somebody and they tell you and then it's ignored, you know. So listen and then say, right, is that a good idea? Yeah, right, let's make it happen, and let's go back and tell that person it's happening. You know, so keeping in touch, not having lots of layers, because, you know, if you're sitting up here, people begin to guess what you want to hear and they filter it out. That's the beginning of the end.
And you once I've been lucky to kind of chat with you a few times over the years, and you've once shared an amazing piece of advice with me when I was like having an issue and I wasn't sure if I should deal with it today or postpone it for 6 or 12 months. And you shared a story about a stone in a shoe.
Yeah, so it was actually Frank Dick, who's a Scotsman, who was the Great Britain athletics coach, and he moved from coaching world-class athletes to being a motivational speaker. And I always remember Frank came, he was working with a friend of mine, David Molesdale, in his business, and Frank said, you know, if you start and you're running a marathon and you've got a stone in your shoe in mile 1, you don't wait till mile 26 to deal with it. And, you know, the biggest challenges you'll have in business are people. And it's the hardest thing, but it's the most rewarding thing. And the hardest thing is when you need to let people go, you know. It's really difficult. And people could have been loyal to you in the way up, but when you're growing a huge business, maybe the skills they had from 0 to 10 million are not going to work from 10 to 50. And then the skills somebody's got from 10 to 50 ain't going to work and they've been loyal, and they'll say, James, what are you doing? You know, I've worked so hard for you, and you're recruiting above my head. These are the tough decisions. Can only be dealt with honesty and sincerity, but they're still tough.
And you mentioned with the investing side of what you do, it's all about the founder, which is a fantastic philosophy. But what are the things that you look for in a founder that you want to invest in and you want to back?
Yeah, so what I would say is I'm looking for a decent human being. What does that mean? It means different things to different people. I'm just looking for someone who's actually got a heart. So they're not just money. And that might sound stupid because you probably think the person who's only focused on money is going to make the most amount of money. Not in my experience. So a decent person. I'm looking for someone who is honest about their mistakes and their learnings, who's not afraid to go, yeah, I got that wrong, but I won't do it again, but yeah, I got that wrong, my fault. I'm looking to someone when things go wrong, they're not going to lie, they're not going to run away, they're not going to avoid you. And I'm looking for someone who doesn't take themselves too seriously, because we've got to have a bit of fun along the way.
Well, Sir Tom, it's been amazing hanging out. Thanks for telling us more about the business and the inspirational things that you're doing with the Hunter Foundation as well.
Great. Cheers.
Cheers.
And good luck.
Thank you.